Welcome to Spiritually Speaking with Althea. I'm Althea Jacob, and I am delighted you are joining us for this episode entitled, Where Are You on Your Personal Hero's Journey? So a lot of my clients over the years have come to me because they are trying to figure out what is the purpose of their life? Why do they have to experience all these crazy twists and turns and unexpected challenges that pop up? And how do they just make sense of it? And so one of the things I thought would be really useful and fun to talk about today is about the hero's journey. And this is the work from Joseph Campbell, and it has 12 different phases. And it's the basis for all of the movies that we love, right? It's the basis for Star Wars and Harry Potter and The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and Avatar. They all follow the same hero's journey script, if you will. And so one of the things that I thought would be interesting to do is go through each of those 12 phases to help you understand, like, where are you at? Because if you know you're at a certain phase, you know what to expect during that phase, you know how to move out of that phase. And it can bring you some peace as well as excitement once you know where you're at and what's happening. But to start the episode, I wanted to tell you about one of the first things that happen is in the 12 step is we're in the ordinary world, right? We're just living our life, minding our business, going to work, doing our chores, running our errands. Everything is fairly predictable. We're just doing what we're doing, right? And then something happens. And Joseph Campbell calls it a call to adventure. It's where something shifts us out of the pattern that we're in and brings us into the unknown. And so in my own life, I wanted just to share two of the calls to adventure that I had that actually called me into one environment and then later called me out of that same environment. I had been working for a corporation for, oh my goodness, about 12 years. I was doing a job there for them, very at ease with what I was doing. And my manager came in and said that they were looking for people to go on an international assignment as a corporate auditor. Now, I was not an auditor at the time. I was actually doing more programming and human resource lab work and meeting facilitation and consulting, that kind of thing. And they said, well, it was 18 months and I'd be living in Europe, based out of Paris. And I'd have to learn how to do the auditing. And basically, I would fly to a country like Scotland, spend 2 weeks there doing an audit. And then I would come back to Paris, spend about a week writing my report, and kind of do that spoke and hub type of journeying to all these different places. Well, I had never lived outside the United States before, ever. I've traveled, but I never lived and thought about, oh my gosh, you can't come home when you're on an international assignment like that. I'm going to miss my friends and my family. And what do I do about my house and the stuff I have in my house? And it was just like overwhelming on one hand, but I felt this call, this pull of, wow, how cool will it be to kind of redefine myself and go work and live in a foreign country. So I answered that call and I went and I did that, and it was an amazing experience, and came back and I worked for that same company back here in the US for a total of about 18 years. And then I got another call to adventure to actually told me to leave that company. That prompting of spirit said, it's time for you to leave the safety of working for that predictable paycheck every week or every other week, and all the benefits and everything else that you were so used to, that security. I was supposed to leave that safety net and go out on my own as a freelance life coach and business consultant. And as you can imagine, most of my friends and family thought I was crazy because I was only 7 years away from full retirement with the full benefits and medical stuff and pension and you name it. And I just knew in my heart I was being called to do something different. And it was going to be totally unscripted. Each day would be different. I'd have to pay attention to the promptings of spirit. I'd have to hustle to promote myself and sell my services in different ways versus just working for the company and getting a a paycheck every couple of weeks. So I took that chance and went, and that actually started me down this whole path of learning about dog training and learning about other tools of healing and life coaching and neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis and all these other tools that I now have in my toolkit that I never would have even considered if I was still working that predictable job for that corporation. And I love that corporation. I am glad I had that opportunity. But that same call to adventure that had me leave the US to work for that company overseas was a similar call to adventure that later said, now it's time to leave it. Right. So when you get these calls of adventures, this is not just a once in a lifetime thing. And as we'll go through this, the circle that Joseph Campbell describes, you'll see it's iterative. You start wherever you are, the ordinary world. We meet ourselves there. We're the hero of our own story or the heroine of our own story. And I'm going to use the hero word here as the more inclusive word. I think I've heard some people say, oh, well, how come they don't call it the heroine story? And I was like, if you were talking about a woman, and although we as women will do things differently than our male counterparts on their journeys, we tend to share more and be in communion more with people and relate to the different characters that show up on our path a little differently than the men do. But the actual phases of the hero's journey are the same. How we actually deal with it and go through it might be slightly different, whether we're male or female. But so I'm just going to refer to it to the hero's journey for the rest of the podcast. So here we are, everyday world. We hear the call to adventure. Well, that's the question. Do we listen to the call? Do we take the chance? How many times in your life have you had this opportunity that comes in out of the blue and you're like, oh my God, can I do this? Can I really leave all this behind? Can I make this major change to go follow that opportunity? And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't, right? You could think back if you're a Lord of the Ring fan, when they're trying to decide who's going to take the ring and bring it back to Mordor to destroy it. And the whole council is there and everyone's kind of fighting among themselves. So here's Frodo thinking he's done, right? He's done the hard part. He's made his way from the Shire all the way to the Elfin Kingdom to bring them the ring. And he's done. All right, my call to adventure is over. And it's like, no, that's just the beginning. The real call to adventure was going to the truly unknown and not knowing what they were going to face on the journey when they went out there. And so people like, well, back to like Harry Potter, his call to adventure was the invitation, right? To come to Hogwarts. He never heard of Hogwarts before. What's this? Wizarding stuff, right? Didn't know about it. And although his situation was pretty horrible, they're living under those cupboard stairs and with step parents or that adoptive, well, I guess it was his uncle, right? His aunt and uncle who really didn't care for him very much. It was still a big step to want to go off on this adventure, to go to the unknown. It takes courage to go to the unknown and have that faith in yourself and in the benevolence of spirit that it's going to work out. If you got that call, if you had that longing and this call shows up and you're like, wow, okay, why not? Let's go for it. Wonderful things can happen. Now, first time, we hear the call, sometimes we resist. We're like, I don't know, should I, could I don't know. And then sometimes you'll have, according to Joseph Campbell, like a mentor or a teacher will show up in your life. Somebody that will kind of say, you can really do this. I believe in you. You'll have the tools that you need. You'll have the support. And then the next step is crossing over the threshold and saying, all right, I'm leaving the stuff behind me and I'm crossing that bridge. I'm crossing out of my comfort zone and going into something that, although it's unknown, I'm really embracing that spirit of adventure and curiosity and gratitude that, oh, this is something cool that's come into my life. Let's see where it leads. And then when you're along the way, you're going to come across people on your path, right? And some of these people will become your friends and allies. Some will become not necessarily enemies, but people that will create the roadblocks and the challenges in our life. So if we think of Harry Potter, for example, he meets up with Hermione and with Ron, right? So these are going to be his buddies that we have as his support as he's going through all his adventures. And then who's one of his, I won't necessarily call him an enemy per se, or he thinks he perceives as an antagonist, at least it's Draco Malfoy at his level, and then Professor Snape, right? So there's these roles that show up, right? And Hagrid and obviously Professor Dumbledore would be also adults who are those little bit of mentors, helpers along the way. Well, in our lives, we have people that show up for us too. We have the friends that we make in the new environment, or the work colleagues in the new job, the new boss. We may have somebody who's in the in the office that's in competition with us. And so that person may not be thrilled that we're now in this new environment, right? So we have to kind of look at, all right, we have these new enemies, we have these new friends, we have tests and challenges to prove ourselves worthy of, can I actually do this new thing? And then after that, sometimes we'll go into, I think he calls it going into the cave. And this is seen probably most dramatically in Star Wars when Luke goes into the cave. He just started studying with Yoda, and he is trying to get in touch with the Force. And what does he have to do? He has to go into the cave and basically face his dark side. And so that means we're getting a little closer to what we want, because we have to confront not just our fears, but what is the darkest nature of ourself that's preventing us from going forward and preventing us from being the best possible version as we can. And then when we come out of that, now we're kind of emboldened. Typically, there is a test that has to happen. Sometimes it's an ordeal. Sometimes it's a bigger test of, okay, now that I've overcome my dark side. So when he comes out of the cave, what does he have to do? He has to use the Force, and he has to levitate up the boat out of the muck, right? So that he can go on his way. So he had to kind of prove like, yep, I overcame my dark side. Now I'm ready to embrace the light of the Force, and I can now go forward on my journey. And so after you go through that cave experience and that ordeal and the testing, then you can get a reward from that. And the reward is, in his case, it was the Force. And obviously sometimes the movie goes on and on and on. There's, different levels and different sub circles within the circles. But then what happens, right? So let's jump ahead. So now we've proven ourselves. So let's go back to Lord of the Rings. And Frodo finally, after three episodes of the trilogy, winds up on Mount Doom, and he's going to throw the ring. He throws the ring in there. Okay, now I'm done. Mission accomplished. I'm in the middle of a mountain that's exploding and a volcano that's erupting, and I got to get myself home, right? So we go on this journey. We have the adventure. We go through the tests and ordeals. We get the reward, but now we got to go back home, right? And sometimes, again, we have a little help along the way. Sometimes it's kind of like a death and a rebirth situation, like everyone's thinking, all right, well, we're saying our goodbyes, we're gone, we're goners, we're done for. And then like in Lord of the Rings, I know what happens. The eagles swoop down, like get him off of the rock. So he's not perishing there and dying. So he has this renewed sense, this soaring of spirit, this renewed sense of life. And it's kind of the resurrection. And then he gets to come back first to the Elven Kingdom and get healed up a little bit, and then back home to the Shire, where there's the reunion with the people he left behind. He has his stories. He has the gifts he brings home of how he grew and what he learned on the adventure and what happened there. And so we have this sense of completeness, but now we're back home and we're changed from going through this iteration of our hero's journey. But now our life is kind of back to, okay, so even though I'm changed, I'm back to something that becomes my new ordinary life, whatever that might look like. And after a certain period of time, what tends to happen, guess what? Starts again. we get a new call to adventure, and we have the opportunity to refuse the call, to accept the call. Do we have mentors and teachers that show up to help us along the way, crossing that bridge? And sometimes that bridge then burns behind us or falls behind us. And it's like, oh, there is no going back that way. You have to find a whole new way back, and you make some new friends. You come against new enemies. You go through, again, a cave experience, right? Of what's still, it's like peeling layers of an onion. What is still stuck within you that might be dark or holding you back from being all that you could possibly be? Going through new tests, new ordeals, getting new rewards, and then figuring out, okay, how do I get back home? And that trek back home, that rebirth into whatever this new form of life is going to be for you after going through it, coming back with the elixir, the prize, the new gifts that you share with others and integrate into your new life, right? So this is happening. It's like a continuous improvement loop over and over again, right? So what I ask for you to do in our little metaphysical moment today is to take a look at your life and recognize, where are you on your journey right now? And one of the ways that you can figure that out a little bit is if you think about those kind of movies I talked about, Avatar, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, The Hobbit, Star Wars, those movies, when you're watching those kind of movies, what character speaks to you? Who do you relate with? And when you think of yourself and your life, think of, where is that character in the movie, right? So if you're like, wow, I'm feeling stuck, I feel like there's something that's calling me, but I don't know what it is. I don't really have any hope in my life. And I really can relate to Harry as he's under the stairs in that cupboard, feeling like, it's my birthday and I'm all alone, and who cares about me, right? Oh, well, you're just at the beginning of this next round of the call to adventure. It's about ready to happen. So pay attention, right? So the character and where they are in the movie, when you relate to them, it's going to really help you know, who are you? And by the way, sometimes we're the hero of our own story. Sometimes we're playing that role for other people's stories, for other people's heroes' journeys. There's times that I will be the mentor or the teacher for somebody who's going through their own hero's journey. Sometimes I will be the adversary. I'm going to ask them, like, are you really thinking of doing this? Why are you thinking of doing that? Oh, come on now. You never loved that kind of thing before. To be that devil's advocate, to find out, are they really wanting to do what they're going to do? Okay. So when you figure out what character you are and where that character is in the movie, it'll help you figure out where you're at. And that'll give you some information about what you should be looking for, what kinds of things will be coming next, so you can feel more prepared to deal with whatever is showing up for you in that part of your life. And then lastly, for the exercise, once you figure that out, just give thanks for the helpers that have gotten you to that point, and for any gifts that you've received, and make sure that you have a conscious plan of how to pay it forward, and so to speak, how to share that gift with others when you get back home. So that was a whirlwind through the hero's journey. Again, the phases are, you're living in the ordinary world. You have that call to adventure. You can refuse or answer the call. You'll meet a mentor, a teacher, or a guide. You'll cross the threshold, you'll cross the bridge and leave the old world behind. And now you're off onto the adventure. You'll meet new allies. You'll meet friends, and you'll also meet enemies, and you'll have tests. You'll have to face the darkest parts of yourself and have that sort of ordeal. And then you get rewarded for being willing to do that hard work. And you get to then start your trek back home, feeling reborn, the phoenix rising from the ashes, the resurrected spirit. And then you come back with the gifts, the experiences, the wisdom, the knowledge that trip gave you, and you share those gifts with others. Okay, so that's the hero's journey. So the last thing I'd like to do today is to share with you some poetry. One of the elixirs or the gifts I came back from one of my journeys with was channeling inspired writings, and including this particular piece called Becoming Truly Human. So I wanted to share that with you today before we signed off. So, Becoming Truly Human. You were born to fulfill your potential. Your birthright is to thrive and shine and become all that you can be. The gifts and talents you strive to perfect are innate to all sentient life. They are ways of being, once usual and pervasive, now all but forgotten. In your soul, you remember and yearn to forget, to unlearn that which has taken the place of the natural order of things. Simply open your heart to love all. When there is oneness of mind, spirit, and heart, there are no walls of time and space. You do not need to be special or earn the right to wield the keys of knowledge. Open your heart, open your mind. There is no good or bad. There are only forms of expression. Once you all shared a common language and were later confounded when you perceived differences and chose hate and fear over kindness and love. Have compassion for yourself and for others. Still the distractions of your busy lives. As you think, so you are. Intention and attention leads to more energy and information. Being first, then doing. Be, know, then act. Kindness matters. Connecting with each other is noble. Embracing your higher nature is an act of remembering the oneness that expresses as the many. There is but one heartbeat, one breath, and the stillness of the nothingness where all were born, exist, and return. Become truly human. The fullness of knowing and expressing is something you have always been and is there for you to reclaim, to share, and to know once more. Allow yourself to remember. You already know. You have always known. Okay. So that's something I came back with one time. So before I sign off, I have a little promo here. So I have a book coming out, and it's called A Portal to Potential, The Muse of Monroe. And it is a book that contains uplifting passages, reminders of ancient wisdoms, practical advice for anybody on a spiritual path that's really looking to expand their consciousness, get more creativity, and try to figure out what their soul's purpose is and actualize even more of that in their day-to-day life. So this is a book that has a lot of inspired and uplifting writings that came through me. Some of them are poems. Some of them are questions to ponder that will help lead to more insights. This is going to be available on Amazon starting the last week of April and on Kindle after that. So I just wanted to give a little plug for the book. So I'm kind of excited about it, as you can tell. And I want to thank you once more for tuning in to Spiritually Speaking with Althea. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and that it gave you something to think about of where are you in your own personal hero journey. Please go to my website when you get a chance, altheajacob.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, do all the nice social media things, like it, share it, subscribe it, you know what to do. I look forward to answering any questions y'all have. I have some workshops that are coming up that you'll see with upcoming events when you go to my website. I really appreciate you spending the time with me today. This is Althea from Spiritually Speaking with Althea, wishing you a blessed day and thanking you once more for the time.